अज्ञान तिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जन शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन कृपालु गुरवे नमः। ध्यानमूलं गुरोर्मूर्तिः पूजामूलं गुरोर्पदम् मन्त्रमूलं गुरोर्वाक्यम् भक्तिमूलं गुरोर्कृपा। कस्तूरी तिलकं ललाटपटले वक्षःस्थले कौस्तुभम् नासाग्रे वरमौक्तिकं करतले वेणुः करे कङ्कणम् सर्वाङ्गे हरिचन्दनं सुललितम् कंठे च मुक्तावली गोपस्त्री परिवेष्टितो विजयते गोपाल चूडामणिः यो ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तग्वंह देवमात्मबुद्धिप्रकाशम् मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये। We'll chant for a few minutes. भजो गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला जो गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला भजो गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला भजो 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 गिरिधर गोविंद गोपाला। श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की, श्रीमद् युगल सरकार की जय। Respected devotees of Sri Maharaj Ji, respected viewers, Radhe Radhe. हे परम प्रियतम पूर्णतम पुरुषोत्तम श्री कृष्ण, तुमसे विमुख होने के कारण अनादिकाल से हमने अनंतानंत दुख पाए एवं पा रहे हैं। The simple translation of this verse of the beginning prayer: O my dearest darling, the absolute supreme Shri Krishna, I have suffered to extremes in this world as I have ignored your grace. Let us try and understand the deeper meaning of these lines. There is a beautiful verse in the Bhagavatam. Bhayam dvitiya bhiniveshata syadishadapetasya viparyayo smritihi tanmayayato buddha abhajetam bhaktyayikaesham gurudevatatma. Since the individual soul turned away from his beloved God, Sri Krishna, vimukh is the word, means to turn away. To turn your face away from God. As a result of turning away from God, the soul became influenced by Maya. So this verse describes that when the soul will turn and face Sri Krishna, in other words, when the soul will become sanmukh, turn Godward with a full heart, wholeheartedly, then the individual soul will be liberated from the clutches of Maya, will transcend the limitations of Maya. The knot of ignorance will forever cease. It will break. And the soul will find its ultimate goal of divine love realization. Vedavyasji explicitly states in the Puranas, Das bhutamidam tasya jagat sthavar jangamam Shriman Narayana Swami Jagatam Prabhurishvara Dasa Bhuta Harereva Nanyasyaiva Kadachana Padma Purana. That as a fraction or Shakti, power, whatever its nature may be, the individual soul is an eternal fraction of God. A natural servant of God. Likewise, Gauranga Mahaprabhuji, the supreme descension of Sri Radha Krishna over 500 years ago, he tells us, Jiver Swarup Hoye Krishner Nitya Das, that every soul is an eternal servant of Sri Krishna. And Sri Krishna himself tells us in the Gita, Gatir Bharta Prabhu Sakshi Nivasah Sharanam Suhrit. Every soul is a das, servant of Sri Krishna. Just as the various parts of a tree, the roots and the branches and the leaves and the flowers, they serve the tree. The roots extract nutrients from the earth and supply them to the tree. The leaves, etc., pull sunlight and air and serve the tree. In the same way, we, the individual soul, should also serve our anshi, Anshi means our whole. We are the fraction. Sri Krishna is we are the ansh, fraction, a part, a spark of divinity. God is our anshi. So it is our natural identity, if you will, to serve, seva, because we are His das. So this naturally leads to two essential questions. First, what is the nature of our relationship with God? We have to understand the answer to this scientifically. The second, what or who is responsible for the soul to turn away from Sri Krishna? What caused the soul to turn away? So the answer to the first question, let us explore. वेद शास्त्र कहे संबंध अभिधेय प्रयोजन कृष्ण कृष्ण भक्ति प्रेम तीन महाधन. Sambandha, relationship. Abhidheya, how to establish that relationship. And prayojan, what is the purpose of that relationship? So for our purpose, we are going to look or explore the meaning of the word sambandha. Sam is the prefix and bandha is the root. So the meaning of the word sambandha is eternal bond. Eternal bond. Speaking of the mother, father, brother, son-in-law, brother-in-law, and all these whom we consider and call our relations. Now think, can the word sambandhi be truly used for parents, spouse, and children? And think whether or not this word sambandhi can be used for Sri Krishna and make a decision. Our closest relationship is with the parents. Mother is number one, father is number two. After that come the siblings. And the wife, she is a very distant relation. Where is she from? Who are her parents? You circled the sacred fire 7 times and she became your wife. So we form relationships in the world because we have something to gain from those people. Point number 1. Point number 2 is that there is no telling how long these people are going to stay with us. We see, we observe, we witness. Sometimes the child is born and the mother dies while giving birth. It happens thousands of times. The child could not even understand his relationship with the mother. 10 days later, the father died. So one thing is that the relationship with all these people is so uncertain that there is no guarantee for even 1 second. And let us suppose that all of these family members, mother, father, brother, and everyone, lived for and remained alive for 100 years. For 100 years. Nobody died in your family. Then what? These people will remain related to you for as long as their selfish motives are fulfilled. Otherwise, even brothers are known to kill brothers. So the relationships that we have with people in the world are, for one thing, they're temporary. And even if all these people lived for a long time, where will they go after they die? They will go to where their actions will take them. So the relationship comes to an end. It comes to an end. Yes. And for as long as the relationship did exist, the basis of that was selfishness, self-interest. That's what it was. The mother had pinned great hopes on her child, on her son, right from when he was a child, right from his childhood. My son will be very great, and he will serve me, and he will surpass even Shravan Kumar in obeying and serving his parents. Now, the same boy speaks abusive words to the parents. And some fall down so low as to even slap their parents. And still, those unfortunate parents, they are so attached to them and consider them as their own. This is even more surprising. Even more surprising. So, all of these relationships that we have in the world are temporary. In this life, we have a father. In our next birth, we will have a new father. And beyond that, perhaps a dog father and a cat father. Yes, we will have to have a father no matter what form or what body we reincarnate into. And over the course of our unlimited, infinite lives, we have had so many fathers and mothers and brothers, and as the scriptures describe, Katinam sutana lalita, kativaneha vadhura bhunjihi, kvanute kvanutascha vayam bhavasangah khalupantha sangamah. So this world is a meeting place of fellow travelers. People, they travel by train to various destinations. So they're sitting in a train, each going to a different destination. So they're sitting idle, what to do? So they start chatting with each other. So, where are you headed? What do you do for a living? Oh, yes, yes. And the other one says, yes, yes. Even if they're saying the wrong thing, they're still nodding, agreeing. So when the train makes a stop, one says, okay, I'm going. Harnamganj has arrived at my station. I'm going to the sadhana program, going to Mangar for the sadhana. So the other one says, but how can you do this to me? You cannot leave me. Why didn't you come with me to Allahabad? So the other person says, well, no, I can't because I have to get to Mangar. I'm going for sadhana. Why didn't you come along with me and join the sadhana program? So he says, well, I don't have faith in God. So he says, well, I don't have faith in Allahabad. So the train makes a stop and the passenger gets off. And all of those loving conversations, they come to an end. This is exactly our situation in the world with our people, whom we consider ours, mother, father, brother, sister, and all of these people. After the Mahabharata war, Dhritarashtra, the father of the Kauravas, he was left alone. He was all by himself, alone. All his 100 sons had perished. They were all gone. So he asked Sri Krishna, what sin am I being punished for? So Sri Krishna says, well, I don't have faith in Allahabad. So he says, well, I don't have faith in Allahabad. So the other one says, but how can you do this to me? You cannot leave me. Why didn't you come with me to Allahabad? So he says, well, I don't have faith in Allahabad. So he says, well, I don't have faith in Allahabad. So he says, well, I don't have faith in Allahabad. So he says, well, I don't have faith in Allahabad. So he says, well, I don't have faith in Allahabad. So he says, well, I don't have faith in Allahabad. So he says, well, I don't have faith in Allahabad. So he says, well, I don't have faith in Allahabad. So he says, well, I don't have faith in Allahabad. So he says, well, I don't have faith in Allahabad. So he says, well, I don't have faith in Allahabad. So he says, well, I don't have faith in Allahabad. So he says, well, I don't have faith in Allahabad. So he says, well, I don't have faith in Allahabad. So he says, well, I don't have faith in Allahabad. So he says, well, I What am I being punished for? Because even in the world, parents have 2 or 3 or 4 children, and at least one, if not all, remains alive until the parents turn old. But in my case, I lost all 100 sons. And why is that? He asked Sri Krishna. So Sri Krishna said that when you calculate sins, do not consider just one lifetime, because that is not the Hindu philosophy. No, it is not like that. You have lived for uncountable lifetimes, and you have performed uncountable actions and sins. Do you remember them? So Dhritarashtra, he remembered 4. His 4 lifetimes. So Sri Krishna said, what is 4 in light of infinity? So 4 minus infinity, what is that? Infinity. Infinity minus infinity, it is infinity. It's just like if somebody goes to the ocean and they take 4 drops out of the ocean and claim to have reduced the ocean by 4 drops, people will laugh at such a person. So, relationships in the world are temporary. Temporary. Yes. And meaning that they are only a bond. They're not eternal. They're not eternal relationships. They're just a bond. A temporary bond based on self-interest. And for as long as that relationship is intact, 2 months, 4 months, 10 months, 2 years, or however long, there's constant rifts and quarrels. What kind of relationship is this? What kind of relationship is this? Starts out real strong in the morning, and then in the afternoon, things turn upside down. And then the name-calling starts. Yes. And the biggest thing is that the person whom we believe is our relative, because we wish our selfish interests or motives to be fulfilled, well, they feel the same toward us. And yet, both say to each other, oh, I want this for you, and the other says, well, I want that for you. But the reality is quite the opposite. They're only thinking for themselves. Love in this world, it is self-centered. It is self-absorbed. We cannot think beyond our happiness. That is just human nature. Because we have not received perfect love, perfect happiness, so we cannot think beyond our own. Whatever is our own, that is it. We cannot think beyond. So, these relationships are a mere show, external show. Yes. And the world is propelling, it's moving on the basis of acting, etiquette. Because if the reality were to come out, the entire world would collide and crash within 24 hours. Yes, that is what will happen. So let us try to understand the sequence of worldly relationships in layman's language. You have a relationship with your neighbor. Still closer is your relationship if you have a servant in the house. Still closer, your friends. Closer than your friends, parents and children. Still closer is a relationship of husband or wife. But the closest and most intimate relationship we have as individuals is with our body. Our body. Yes. Our body will never act against us because it is our own. We may look at somebody and feel critical toward them and judge them. Oh, she's very tall, he's very tall, she's very short, he's very short, he's dark, she's dark. But when we look at ourselves, we think, wow, look at me. How great I look. How beautiful I am. I know God is most beautiful. He's number one, but I'm certainly number two. So we feel ecstatic when we look at our body. We're so attached to our body as individuals. And yet, our body will also leave us one day. When the time of death will come, our body will also leave us, depart. Our body will perish, rather. Yes, that is what will happen. Because our body was made in our mother's womb, it's made of the 5 structural elements: earth, water, fire, air, and space. And all of these elements will merge into their reason. So, earth will mix into earth, fire will mix into fire, water into water, air into air, and space into space. Everything comes full circle. Full circle. That is what will happen. And the waste of our body, and after we pass on, it is turned into fertilizer. And that fertilizer, when it's mixed with the earth, it yields grains, wheat and other grains. We eat those grains, the food that we eat, then what happens? It's converted into juices, and then blood, and then flesh, and then bone, marrow, seminal fluid. The body is then created from a combination of the seminal fluid from the father and menstrual blood from the mother. So then that body will die someday. Upon death, it's going to go back into the earth. And then what? Food stuff will yield again. We'll eat it. And this cycle has been going on forever. Since eternity. We've been in this world since eternity. Yes. So this is the reality of our body. This is what our body is all about. So how can we expect to have an eternal relationship with our body? No. This is what it's all about. And for as long as we have it, we know this reality. There's no denying that scores of problems are troubling us. Sometimes, we have aches and pains, and this and the other is going on with our body. We're running to the doctors, getting treatments, and all of this. So, we become a slave to the body. So, even our body is not ours. The point is that no one in the world is our sambandhi. No. And while we expect someone to give us joy and pleasure, the fact is, the reality is that they don't even know what happiness actually is. No, they don't. Once in Ayodhya, Bhagwan Ram, he gave a lecture. एक बार रघुनाथ बुलाए, गुरु द्विज पुरवासी सब आए। त्याग ही कर्म शुभा शुभदायक, भज ही मोहि सुर नर मुनि नायक। So, Bhagwan Ram gave a lecture and he told the residents of Ayodhya that only I am yours. Me alone. No, nobody else is yours except for me. Your mother, father, no, none of them. Me, only me. Truth be told, it is a common occurrence in families that they deprive us of real happiness. What do I mean by this? If someone in a family starts walking toward God, then the other family members, they become indignant. Oh, but he's chanting Radhe Radhe and he's doing, what's going on? What happened? He's chanting Radhe Radhe, yes. But you were the one that sent him to the ashram, did you not? Well, I did, but that doesn't mean that he's just supposed to just chant Radhe 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 all the time. Of course he can chant in his mind. So now the rest of the family, because they're not interested, are after the life of this poor soul. And if they can't change him, then they feel like, all right, well, let's just go to their guru and fix him. But what can the guru do? All he did was impart knowledge. Because if it were up to the guru, then he would have taken the entire world to divine Golok. It is up to the soul to accept that knowledge, right? Yes. It is up to the soul, not up to God or the saint. No. So, how can these relations be our true well-wishers? No, they're not our well-wishers. No. So our relationship, the beginning, without any beginning and without any end, is with one divine entity alone, and that's God. प्राणों के प्राण अरु गोविंद राधे जीवों के जीवन कृष्ण है बता दे. Radha Govind Geet. Our scriptures tell us, Mamaivansho jivaloke jivabhutah sanatanah. Gita. Chinmatram Shri Hareransham Sukshmam Aksharam Avyayam. Ved. Amritasya Vaiputraha. We are the children. We are the children of Sri Krishna. Eko havai devo narayano mata pita bhrata nivasah sharanam suhrit gatihi. All of our relationships are with one Sri Krishna only. And what kind of relationship is this? How personal and how intimate is this relationship? So the Bhagavatam describes, Harir deha bhritamatma swayam prakritirishvara tatpadamulam sharanam yatah kshemo ninamiha. That we, the individual soul, which is we, who we are, our true identity, the soul is the body of the Supreme Soul. That is how intimately connected we are with God. And this relationship is eternal. What do I mean by this? Well, it is because God empowers the soul. We, the soul. Otherwise, without His direct empowerment or association, we, the soul, would be inert. There would be no life in the soul. So that's why our scriptures tell us, Nityo nityanam chetanas chetananam meko bahunam nidadhati kaman. That God, Sri Krishna, our eternal relation, He has never left us. He cannot leave us for even a fraction of a second. In every life, in every form that we reincarnated into over the course of unlimited infinite lives, He never left us and He never will. This is what an eternal bond is. So, the answer to the first question, our relationship, the true nature of our relationship with Sri Krishna is that it is complete. It is sambandha. It is an eternal bond. The second question, what is responsible for us turning away from God? So the word antahakaran, we have heard, we even say it in this prayer. It consists of the mind, intellect, and our sanskars, impressions left on the mind due to activities of our past lives. So a combination of this is known as the antahakaran. And this antahakaran, according to the Gita, has two partitions, mind and the intellect, the desiring mind and the discriminating mind. The Sankhya Darshan says, man, buddhi, ahankar. And Vedanta says, man, buddhi, chitta, ahankar. But the Gita tells us, mayi evam adhatsva, mayi buddhim nivesha, mayi arpitam mano buddhihi. 2. So, how does the system work? What does the mind do? The mind, it grasps the objects of the senses, of sight, smell, sound, taste, and touch, with the help of the senses. Without the mind, the senses are useless. They cannot do anything. So the mind grasps the external objects with the help of the senses. And then, what does it do? It analyzes it. The work of the mind begins, it analyzes it. Is this person a female or a male? Should I look upon them with love, hatred, or indifference? Will my self-interest be harmed or served? In this way, the mind analyzes. And then it relays the information to the discriminating mind, which is the intellect. So the intellect says, this person is no one to you, move on. When we go to the market, we see a lot of people. But the intellect keeps telling us, just keep moving, this person's no one to you, you don't know that person's a stranger, so we keep moving through the crowd. And as soon as we find someone, or we spot somebody that we know that's familiar to us, then we immediately stop and acknowledge them and talk to them and chat with them. Now, how does this happen? It happens because the intellect tells the mind that this person is dear to you. So talk to them. So then the mind in turn tells the senses, smile, talk, frown. This is what happens. So the work of the mind takes place twice. It analyzes, grasps the objects of the senses, analyzes it, sends it to the intellect, and the intellect then in turn gives the judgment, and the mind acts accordingly, instructs the senses. So what is the implication of this? The implication of this is that someone who is wise Am I losing you all? You're paying attention. Radhe, Radhe. Okay. So, the implication of this is that someone who is wise sees the objects of the senses, but the intellect and sends that information to the intellect. But the intellect being firm in the knowledge given by the Guru, the intellect passes a judgment and says, no, this thing is not mine. It cannot give me the fulfillment I desire. No. So the intellect tells his mind to not direct the senses there. And the mind does not object, nor do the senses. Why? Because they are mere servants. They are mere servants. They have no objection. Just like if you instruct a horse to take a particular path, it does so. If the driver of a car turns the wheel down a certain road, they don't object, because their job is to move irrespective of the directions. So everything depends on the decision of the intellect, is what I'm saying. On the decision of the intellect. And that is why we need the power of discrimination. And without discrimination, our common sense of infinite lives tells us that the world is ours. We are witness to people who are running after the world, even in old age, even after retirement. If somebody doesn't have a wife or children, then they serve somebody's wife and somebody's children. Some people adopt children and spend years raising their adopted child. Yes. So in this way, we willingly bring about the tension and anxiety and frustrations that accompany material attachments. We do not make an attempt to get out of this mess. No. No, we don't. In the words of Sri Maharaji, I tell people that, now your son is old enough and he's earning. Why don't you give up family responsibilities and spend time in sadhana? But Maharaji, my son is still young. He doesn't really know how to conduct business properly. And so I have to help him. So Maharaji says, well, you think your son is going to grow up to be your father? No. He's always going to be your child. When are you going to do it if not now? When are you going to devote and dedicate your life to spirituality if not now? Well, Maharaji, what you're saying is correct. It is so true. But this intellect, it goes by the practice of infinite lifetimes. This intellect, it goes by the practice. So such a person who does not have the refuge of a God-realized personality cannot enter the kingdom of God. No. It is only one who has surrendered to a saint. Such a person or such an aspirant has hope. Hope. So, we have to give our mind. Shri Krishna tells Arjuna in the Gita, Maye mana adhatsva, Mayi buddhim niveshaya. Shri Krishna told Arjuna, give your mind to me. Arjuna said, all right, I'll give my mind to Shri Krishna and I'll keep the intellect. Because after all, the intellect is what's more important. And as soon as he had that thought, Shri Krishna said, he added, Mai buddhim, give the intellect also. Man de de, buddhi de de, Govinda Radhe, यही है प्रपन्न परिभाषा bata de. So Shri Krishna said, no, Arjun, give both your mind and your intellect. So when you'll give both, in other words, when you will part with everything you have in the form of mind and intellect, then you will have to act according to the person you have surrendered, right? And if that person or that personality is divine, they will take you on the right path. But if you fall victim, fall prey to a gambler or an alcoholic or somebody like that, then what will happen? And you surrender your intellect to them, then they'll take you into the deepest trench of misery. That is what they will do. Because wherever you surrender, that's what you get. That is what will happen. So, to answer that question, who or what is responsible? It is our intellect that is responsible for the quandary we are in. Until our intellect becomes decisive, we have to be very careful. We have to be very careful. And our intellect will become decisive when we perceive God directly in front of us. Until then, no. We cannot trust our buddhi, our intellect. After all, it is mayik. It is material. Yes. We may have rowed 190 yards across a river that is 200 yards wide, but we have still not reached the shore. And if we leave the safety of the boat and make an attempt to jump, we may still drown. We may still drown. So, we have to be careful and cautious. So, it is the intellect that is the culprit, the primary culprit that has deprived us of our goal over the course of uncountable lifetimes. Time and time again, our intellect drove us toward the world. Why? Because the intellect believes that it exists in the world. What? Happiness. Happiness exists in the world, and that is why we are deprived of our goal. So, in this lines, the devotee is saying that, oh, Sri Krishna, I turned away from you since eternity. And as a result, I have suffered to extremes. So the intellect is the culprit. The soul turned away from Sri Krishna and afflicted by the painful sufferings in the form of its faithful service to Maya, the soul is surrounded by pain and misery. It is overburdened with these Mayic defilements and the afflictions, Daihic, mental and physical afflictions, Daivik, caused by other living beings, and also Bhautik, by the surroundings and nature, heat, cold, etc. And Trikarma, the three kinds of actions, Triguna, the qualities of Maya, and Panchaklesh, Avidya, Asmita, Raga, Dvesh, Abhinivesh, and all of these diseases, they took over our mind, our consciousness. So this devotee is saying that I have suffered to extremes because I turned away from you. तुझसे विमुख होके गोविंद राधे, अति दुख पाया अब तो कृपा दे। तुझते विमुख होके गोविंद राधे, हुआ निष्पाप कौन नाम बता दे। तुझसे विमुख होके गोविंद राधे. So, the devotee is saying that having turned away from you since eternity, I have experienced untold misery and sufferings. And is there anyone, please give me the name, tell me the name of the person who has remained free of sins after turning away from you. And that is why Tulsidas ji has said, जीव जब ते हरि ते बिलगान्यो, तब ते देह गेह निज मान्यो, मायावश स्वरूप बिसरायो, ते ही भ्रम ते दारुण दुख पायो. So Tulsidas ji says that, O Sri Krishna, I have been wandering endlessly in this world in ignorance. It was your causeless grace that bestowed me or endowed me with this human body. I met my Guru, received all the knowledge so that I could do bhakti and sadhana to be liberated from the pains and miseries of this world, of this bondage. But still, my mind is so obstinate, it is so stubborn that it doesn't come to you, doesn't remember you. So this is the explanation of this line. He Param Priyatam, Poornatam Purushottam Shree Krishn, Tumse vimukh hone ke karan, anadikal se humne anatanant dukh paye, evam pa rahe hain. श्रीमद् सद्गुरु सरकार की, श्रीमद् युगल सरकार की जय. जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे, जय जय श्री राधे. किशोरी दास, एक मिनट रुकना. So, I just wanted to, just as clarification, although I do expect that you understand the knowledge, the philosophy, but just as clarification, the implication of the answer that I gave to the very first question about the nature of our relationship with God, and I explained relationships in the world and the selfish nature of worldly relationships. The implication is not that when you go back to your room tonight, or you call your spouse if they're not here, that you pick a fight with them. Or you pick an argument with them and you say, you know what? I had an inkling, and today it is confirmed. You are selfish. And guess what? I'm filing a divorce. No, please don't. That is not the implication. That is not. The implication is not that. Divine knowledge is not something that we use against anyone in our life. No. It is a tool we have been given by our Guru, and this tool we utilize to safeguard our devotional experiences, our devotion, our sadhana, to protect. So what I mean by that is that we retain this understanding within us. Always be cautious and be aware. We have that awareness and understanding. We keep that within us and while we interact with everybody in the world. Because even though we may feel that someone is selfish, and we may realize it, but so are we. Everybody is. Until we realize perfection, perfect love, divine love, God's love, with the grace of our Guru, of course, we are all going to. That's human nature. So knowledge is not to be misinterpreted in this way. No. Of course, Sri Maharaji tells us we have to be kind and have compassion and treat everyone kindly and graciously, because Radha Krishna also reside in their heart. But at the same time, we retain this understanding that this is how it is, so that we may be inspired to propel, to go, and to strengthen our relationship and strive for our goal of divine love realization. So that was the implication of the answer to that question.